Good morning. I'm going to share with you out of one of my favorite authors, C.S. Lewis, and an essay he wrote on prayer. If you're like me and you've been a Christian for any amount of time, there's been a lot of questions in your life about prayer, about why we need to pray, if God already knows what he's going to do, um, and and are we really effective in prayer? And I know I've thought about a lot of those things, but there's some thoughts C.S. Lewis has here, and I just wanted to kind of share them with you over a cup of tea and think about it. So, first of all, we're told to pray. We're told in the Bible that we are to pray. So, praying is obedience. Then we're told here, C.S. Lewis says, for he seems to do nothing of himself which he can possibly delegate to his creatures. He commands us to do slowly and blunderingly what he could do perfectly and in the twinkling of an eye. So, if you ever think about that, we're allowed to help, to be co-workers with God, but he doesn't need us. And I think a great example of this is when we have our toddlers help us. Now, we can so quickly do a job that our young toddlers do and help, and we could do it better. I was not always the best at this. I wanted my housework done and to move on, and I was always a little too busy. But I see my children do great things with my grandchildren about having them help with the household chores, and it takes longer, and it's not always done exactly how you might want it done. But the sense of accomplishment that it gives the children and the way it helps build their self-esteem is wonderful to behold. And I think that's kind of what God does with us. He gives us confidence and helps us build our self-esteem and helps us feel like we're working with him. And that's a beautiful thing, to work with God. The next part I wanted to kind of share with you is what happens when it seems like our prayers aren't really answered, that God doesn't hear us. So it says, C.S. Lewis says, it would be even worse to think of those who get what they pray for as sort of court favorites, people who have influence with the throne. The refused prayer of Christ in Gethsemane is answer enough to that, and I dare not leave out the hard saying which I once heard from an experienced Christian. He said, I have seen many striking answers to prayer, and more than one that I thought miraculous, but they usually come at the beginning, before a conversion, or soon after it. As the Christian life proceeds, they tend to be rarer. The refusals, too, are not only more frequent, they become more unmistakable, more empathetic. Does God then forsake just those who serve him best? Well, he who served him best of all said near his tortured death, why hast thou forsaken me? When God becomes man, that man of all others is least comforted by God at his greatest need. There's a mystery here which even if I had the power, I might not have the courage to explore. Meanwhile, little people like you and me, if our prayers are sometimes granted beyond all hope and probability, had better not draw hasty conclusions to our own advantage. If we were stronger, we might be less tenderly treated. If we were braver, we might be sent with far less help to defend far more desperate posts in the great battle. So, if you feel that your prayers are not always answered in the way you would like them to be, remember, you're in good company. Jesus had that same problem. And if you feel like maybe God doesn't hear you, remember, maybe he trusts you. Love you guys.